This feels like one of those moments where I'm questioning some life choices. But in today's video, I want to disagree with one of the people I respect the most, a brilliant, very thoughtful, very considerate, exceptional Catholic apologist, Trent Horn, on the movie Odyssey, excuse me, and give you my feedback on having seen the movie. This feels like a terrible idea, man. Trent is brilliant, and I am probably gonna botch this whole thing. But I wanna offer an alternative perspective on a recent video that Trent made about refusing to see the Odyssey. And I wanna say this up front, like from the beginning. Trent's video is 99% accurate and good and true and right. And like up front, almost everything in that video I agree with. The one difference that I would make is that going to see the Odyssey is worth it for two reasons. And if you're Catholic and you're thinking, you know, you've been on the fence and you're like, I don't know. There's a lot of questionable stuff in this movie. There's a lot of controversy, a lot of bad casting, a lot of bad writing. Look, the movie has issues, and I'll get into that in a second. It has its issues. But I think as Catholics, and I would maybe argue as Catholic creatives, maybe that's a good place to land this video. I think this video needs to be seen, and I think the conversation needs to be had, and I think it needs to be had by people who have seen the movie. Sad dogs agree with me. Okay, so what I want to do, basically how I want to break this down, is one, talk about my reason for disagreeing with Trent. And again, I highly respect the guy, and he's brilliant. I just think there's a different, alternate perspective that needs to be voiced. And then two, give you just my brief thoughts on the movie itself. So, you know, I watched the whole of Trent's movie, and in the movie, Trent makes the case that as Catholics and as conservatives, we should not go see the Odyssey because, in his opinion, it glorifies the mental illness of Elliot Page. And let me say right up front, it is mental illness. Elliot Page is a woman pretending to be a man. Like, let's not dance around that issue. That is a real issue. And Trent makes a whole lot of good points in his video, and I'm going to link that in the description below because I want you to see his video. He talks about some things that need to be talked about, and he's unafraid to say the things the way they need to be said. All of that is right and true. However, I'm going to make the argument that the Odyssey doesn't actually glorify Elliot Page's mental illness. I'm going to make the argument that the Odyssey sheds light on what happens when you engage in that kind of deception. Because that's what it is. Okay? What the transgender movement is attempting to do is deceive people into engaging in mental illness. And in Trent's video, man, he highlights this beautifully. Okay? So here's how I'm gonna frame this argument. Elliot Page is cast in the role of Sinon. And I'm sure, I mean, there's a bajillion reviews out there. There's lots of, oh, that is a beautiful little hummingbird. Sorry, at this point, it's part and parcel with these videos, man. There's a bird every time. Anyways, there's a lot of commentary on this character, Sinon. And it's not in the Odyssey. It comes up in the Aeneid, and it's later, and it doesn't belong in the movie. And I understand all of those, I understand all those points. I understand the point that Trent is making in his video. But here's the perspective, having seen the movie. I actually think it's quite brilliant, and I'm not gonna make the case that Christopher Nolan did this on purpose. I would maybe make the argument that this happened with or without Nolan's consent, because it's actually pretty brilliant. See, the character Sinon doesn't just appear in this movie and doesn't just appear in the Aeneid. Sinon is mentioned in Dante's Inferno. Now, this is not my original thought. I got this from Michael Knowles. I was listening to his review on the movie, and I've read Dante's Inferno a couple of times, and I didn't make the connection, and Michael Knowles made the connection for me, and I give him credit for this. But Sinon is in Dante's Inferno, and what's really, really cool about this whole situation is that Sinon is in the 10th level of hell as one of the deceivers. He is one of the ones who has committed a great fraud. And I think that's freaking brilliant. Because if you watch the Odyssey, what you see is Sinon, and if you haven't seen the movie, this might be spoilery, so maybe fast forward a little bit. But in the movie, Elliot Page's character Sinon dies almost instantly. She's on screen, and I'm not gonna do the he thing. She's a she. Just call it what it is. In the movie, she dies almost instantly because she is attempting to commit fraud against the Trojans. Now, she doesn't know it. Sinon doesn't know it. But that's what's happening. And I think it's absolutely brilliant that Nolan cast a deceiver to play the deceiver. And then what happens is Sinon ends up in Hades. Not in Olympus. Not in the Greek myth version of heaven. Sinon ends up in hell. And I think it's worth seeing that. You know, this for me ended up being a brilliant conversation in my house because we talked about what happens when you live in deception. And that is what Elliot Page is doing. That is what the transgender movement is trying to do, is perpetuate this deception. And it's genuinely harming so many people. And this movie does a great job of showing you what happens when you choose deception. And then on a practical level, I think it's worth seeing because it doesn't glorify Elliot Page. It actually makes Elliot Page look really bad, in my opinion. She sounds like a woman who has smoked 50 packs of cigarettes right before saying her lines. She doesn't look good. She doesn't sound good. She doesn't look like a man. She doesn't sound like a man. It doesn't matter how many brutal surgeries you go through or how many pills you take. You can't change the fact that you're a woman. And this movie does a great job of showing that this person does not look healthy of mind or body. And so I think for those who feel inclined to go see the movie, it's worth seeing because you see the deception. The deceiver plays the deceiver and dies and goes to hell. I think that's worth the conversations that come from seeing that movie. I'm not trying to convince you to go see it. And I'll tell you right now, I originally did not intend to go see the movie. It wasn't until I listened to Jonathan Pajot's synopsis of the movie and his commentary on the movie that I thought, oh no, this might actually be worth seeing. So I would respectfully disagree with Trent on this case, on this point. I don't think the movie glorifies Elliot Page's mental illness. I think it sheds light on the reality of it. And I think that is worth seeing. Now, I do want to address one point that Trent makes in his video. He asks the question, where do Catholics, where do conservatives, where do Christians draw the line on film and entertainment, things like that? For me, personally, I draw the line on sexual content, on a certain amount of language, and on, it's a really loud, unnecessarily loud truck. I draw the line on certain levels of violence, on the glorification of certain things. Having seen the movie, I do not believe that the character of Sinon and the mental illness of Elliot Page is glorified. I think it's actually revealed for what it is: deception and suffering. So there's a definite line for me on where I draw the line on entertainment, and a lot of it has to deal with the things that are portrayed. I don't think this movie, in my opinion, crosses the line on any of those things for me. So that's the Trent Horn disagreement part. I understand where Trent is coming from, and if you don't feel like going to see the movie, don't go see the movie. However, if you're on the fence, and maybe this topic is one of the deciding factors for you, I think it's worth going to see the movie, because I think what you get to see is the deceiver playing the deceiver, and how awful that looks, and how awful that ends up for the character. Okay, so sorry to interrupt the video, but this one brief announcement is worth it. The episode after today is episode 100, and I want to do a huge 100 episode Ask Me Anything question and answer. You've got questions, I have thoughts, maybe not answers, but there are two ways for you to participate. One, go to the post tab on my YouTube page. In there, there's gonna be a question, Ask Me Anything section. Throw your questions in there. You can comment in this video if you wanna ask your question there, or go to my Instagram and there'll be a post there where you can ask your questions. So, 3 ways, not 2, 3 ways you can participate. Hopefully we have a lot of questions for the 100 episode Ask Me Anything. I'm stoked to do this. Now, back to the video. Let me give you my very brief, because I'm running out of battery, opinion on the video as a whole. I liked this movie from a thematic standpoint. It is beautifully filmed. I'm not critical drinker, I'm not nerdrotic, I'm not any of those guys that do, you know, professional movie reviews. I liked most of the performances. I thought Matt Damon was a believable Odysseus. Anne Hathaway's Penelope is great. Charlize Theron is great. There's some obvious things in here that are dumb and stupid and unnecessary. The language that they choose, the use of the word like dad versus father. I mean, there's just some little things that didn't need to be done that were done that take away from the movie. But as a whole, it's a beautifully well done movie. Christopher Nolan is a genius at directing movies. That's, I think, pretty much agreed upon. The thing I loved the most about the movie is the theme that I came away with personally. And it basically goes like this. In the film, Odysseus makes some choices. And yes, this is different than the best versions of the translation of the Odyssey. But for me, the theme of the movie goes basically like this. If you transgress against the faith you claim to hold, the whole world burns. And I came away from that just profoundly moved, because I look at my own life and I'm like, oh man, where am I proclaiming to believe in the gospel of Christ and doing things that are antithetical to that belief? You know, a good example in the movie, and maybe this is a little spoilery, maybe not, but Odysseus and his crew escape the Cyclops, and in a brief moment of what I will label as pure stupidity, Odysseus turns around and shoots the Cyclops in the eye for no reason. Now, he knows that according to his belief system, the Cyclops is the child of Poseidon. Poseidon is the god of the sea, and if I shoot his child in the eyeball, that's probably going to piss him off. I probably shouldn't do that. But he does it. And yeah, that has massive consequences for Odysseus. And the thing I like the most about the movie that really stirred me internally is that it's not until Odysseus surrenders to the will of the gods he says he believes in that things get righted. I mean, everything goes bad. Many things go bad for Odysseus and his crew. And it's not until Odysseus is willing to surrender to the will of the gods he believes in that things get righted. And that theme of the consequences of transgressing your faith was made very tangible in this movie, and I loved it. I loved it, and I came away stoked and just challenged. How do I grow in my own faith? Where I need to evaluate my faith. That is a big rain cloud coming. I have to finish this video. Where do I need to mature in my faith and stop transgressing against the things that I say I believe in? And then, of course, the underlying theme underneath that, like the sub-theme, is the return of the Father. The return of the Father and the necessity of strong, dangerous men. And if you've never read the Odyssey and you've not seen the movie yet, this is 100% a spoiler, so skip to the end. At the end of the movie, Odysseus returns home to find a bunch of cowardly, boogery men who are taking advantage of his wife's hospitality and attempting to steal his wife and child from him. And what does he do? He kills everybody. And I loved it. The violence is just right. Okay? This is not like grotesque Kill Bill stupid violence. This was artistically well done. Odysseus lays waste to all of the evil men who are trying to harm his home. And I will tell you right now, I believe thoroughly that every Catholic home should have a man in it who is willing to annihilate 100%, without question, annihilate any person who would willingly come into his home to do harm. It's the Jordan Peterson thing, man. It's, you have to be a dangerous man and have that dangerousness under control. And this movie beautifully illustrates that in the closing scenes. Now, are there a lot of things in the movie that are a bummer? Yes. Did they change some of the things from the original book? Yes. Do I think that matters? Kind of, sort of. Some of it's bothersome. Some of it I think works for the purpose of the movie. I mean, if you don't like that, that's fine. Go back and reread the original translation. That's cool. I'm good with all of that. But I think this movie explored a really big question. What happens when you purposefully violate the beliefs that you hold? And I think that right there makes this movie worth seeing if you're a Christian, Catholic, whatever. Absolutely, 100% think this movie is worth seeing. It's really good. I liked it. Am I going to buy the movie when it comes out? I don't know. Am I going to watch it again? Probably. Because, not in theaters, but I mean when it comes out, you know, I'll find it somewhere and watch it again. I think there's some really good things in here that we as Christians and Catholics need to wrestle with. And I think this is a great illustration of those things with which we need to wrestle. Yeah, we're going to land it right there. If you're on the fence and you're not sure if you want to go see the Odyssey, I would encourage you to go. If you really don't like the casting of Elliot Page and you think it's wrong and you agree with Trent Horn, be blessed. Don't go see the movie. Honor what you believe to be true. Because the last thing I want you to do after talking about all the things I've talked about is violate what you believe in. So don't go see the movie. However, if you're on the fence, I would encourage you to go see it. I think this theme of violating one's beliefs is worth seeing. Now, all of that said, thank you for hanging in there with me. Thank you for watching the video. If you have not already, like, subscribe, do all the things. Man, just made major updates to my website. Please go check that out, GarrettHines.com. If you want to commission a piece of art or an iconography piece for your home, see me on that website. And if you need more encouragement for your faith journey, or maybe you're new to the Catholic claims and you're checking out Catholicism, please go see that video right there. That will hopefully encourage your faith. That's all the things. Like, subscribe, comment, and until I see you next time, enjoy the journey.